and it's great people have found the time to take this time with us in the Work Smarter Together space. I won't do too much preamble because I'm going to have the great pleasure in a second of asking Barbara Dooley to open the event for us, but just some of the practical side of what we'll be doing today. The session is going to be recorded, though it'll just be the speaker view from that point of view. Be sure to post questions in the chat as we go along. We'll pick up some of the questions at a Q&A at the end, but we'll also be sure that any questions that come up get addressed back to the presenters that they were referred to, and we'll publish the answers to those questions too, along with the recording from the session in a short while. Be also sure to say, even as you're sitting there listening to me, to say hello from across the campus in the chat. It's a thing you come across if you ever attend any sessions outside UCD. There's always a whole bunch of stuff going on in the chat saying hello from the School of Blah or wherever you might be from. So the extroverts in the audience can start doing that, and everybody else will get drawn into the process. So be sure to do that. And like I say, when we get to the end, we'll have some time for taking questions that have arisen during it. So you'll see me popping in and out to introduce the various sessions along the way, and we'll take the Q&A at the end so that everybody gets a chance to see their questions answered. So with no further ado, I'll hand you over to Professor Barbara Dooley, who's Dean of Graduate Studies and the Deputy Registrar. And Barbara's been a great support to Work Smarter Together over the years. And I particularly remember her taking a session at the Work Smarter Together in 2019. We were all face-to-face when she hosted a session in the round, which can be quite challenging for any of us. And so she, needless to say, did an impeccable job and creates the utmost confidence. And with no further ado or blank checks written for Barbara, I'll hand you over to Barbara and leave you in her good hands. See you soon.
Thanks, Michael. And clearly no pressure, Michael. And I was actually reflecting on that event when we were together face to face. And my preference is face to face. I'm kind of the person that likes to be face to face, but I do acknowledge that the value of doing something online, it does allow so many people, depending where they are, come together. So I'm just looking here, the numbers are creeping up all the time. So we're nearly up to 110 now in the rooms, which is brilliant to have so many people come together to kind of think about this working smarter together. So also, many thanks for the invitation to open today, Michael. I think I've had great pleasure reading some of the, between my own team have got involved, between listening to other people before, and I'm really looking forward to listening to the different topic areas this morning, because they spread quite a variety of our areas, so which is great. But I suppose maybe dialing back a little bit, so some of you, this may be the first time that you've actually come to a Work Smarter Together event, and if it is, maybe a little small background to that. So our Work Smarter Together, it's a UCD community of practice that acknowledges and it celebrates our engagement and the ingenuity of the people of UCD working together. And I think that's often to highlight is there's so many good things happening around the university, and bringing people together in an event like this really helps us to understand how we can actually work smart together. Because what we don't want is all of those really good things siloed somewhere. What we actually want is to spread that out, and no matter what, when everybody who comes to an event like this is likely to walk away with something that actually that they can either bring into their teams or their own work practices or something. So I think that's the really value of attending an event that has 5 or 4 different specifics, and then we have Q&A afterwards and across different areas of the university. So this, Donna very kindly shared some information which I knew, but anyway, it's hard to believe that it was back in 2011 when an Association University Administrators event that this sparked off the idea of formally bringing staff together from across the university to share their creativity, as well as to support and understand the different perspectives of our shared work experiences. So here we are now 10 years on, and we hope moving out of a pandemic. I know we had pre-pandemic, pandemic. I don't think we're quite post-pandemic, but as we transition out, I think even some of the talks this morning, particularly in hybrid working, is where we really our move in that area. So there's a lot to learn and share as we kind of creatively work together in moving into the future. So the Work Smarter Together continues to invite members of the community of practice to share their experiences. So this is what we're going to do today, and thoughts in an event like this. And as Michael said, this is the March event. So there are many events during the year. And I unfortunately should be attending more, Michael. And I do look at them afterwards and I read different things. So, and I do pick up things along the way. So it is a great way for the university to kind of come together. Also, the Agile itself, which Michael heads up, that resulted from part of the strategy back in 2015. And Agile is a resource for the community to support and identify opportunities to develop UCD's capabilities and build on our successes. And I think that's a really important word, our successes. And there are natural synergies between Work Smarter Together's spirit and history and Agile's remit to create space for supporting innovation and creativity, while also providing practical support for problems and challenges which lead to Agile's long-term sponsorship of Work Smarter Together as an initiative. And that's a really good thing. So it's innovation and creativity to create a solution. Anyone who knows me, I don't mind a problem. There are always problems. But what I'm always interested in is what are the solutions? And I think this is one of the things here. So there may be things we need to work through. And I think this is the way we come together is here's a problem, here's some innovation and creativity, and here's even some practical tips that you can take forward. Agility and effectiveness is on the agenda, which Agile pursues each day. And Work Smarter Together is a celebration acknowledgement of our collective agility and effectiveness. And with that in mind, Work Smarter Together brings stories on how the community innovate and collaborate, bring examples of the various tools and techniques. And we'll see here, we will hear different tools as well supporting that work and the insights of the people in those essential operational roles and showcase them to our broader UCD community. So as I said earlier, the natural focus on remote working is now moving into hybrid working as outlined by the president in his recent newsletter. So the lineup has to some extent preempted this with a focus on how we can and will work together when we work in different spaces. And I think that will be a challenge. I think, you know, when we were all remote, there was a consistency to that. We were all face to face. There was a consistency to that. But now when we move into a hybrid a method of working, we certainly are going to have to think, how are we going to use that really effectively to actually deliver on the ambition of the university? And we have 4 areas that we're going to talk about, we'll have presentations from. The first of which is the remote working group. And it's a lively and dynamic community of practice which has blossomed in the face of remote working, bringing together a group who informally flag issues, offer clarity, insight, innovation, practical fixes to a variety of questions. And our second talk then will be on Decision Time, which is a software which is a potential solution to issues for committee meetings that come together from working remotely. And I think that'll be really interesting to hear. And this is a project adopted by the China Joint Colleges Office to use international since 2020. So I'm particularly interested to hear that, because obviously that's a part of our initiative, not even just remotely here in Ireland, but remotely cross continents. So that's we're going to hear about that. And we have an IT presentation showcasing integrated technology that allows effective collaboration. Looking at Google Rooms, Zoom Rooms, and hardware DTEN to run hybrid meetings. And I think running hybrid meetings will be one of the things that will be really important for us going forward. And the final one then is activity-based working, which is a pilot project located in Ardmore House. And we hear about the principles, initiation, and progress of this evolving project, as well as their experiences of being in the building for what is a relatively new way of working in UCD. So I will finish on that. I was given a number of minutes, so hopefully I haven't gone over time. Michael, I think Michael always likes to keep us to schedule. So Michael, I think we're spot on. So I'm looking forward to hearing the different talks this morning, and I'll hand back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Barbara. Just to remind everybody that one of the subtexts for Work Smarter Together, as Barbara noted, is recognition. So this isn't just a chance for you to hear some information and inputs from colleagues. It's also a chance for them to be recognized for the great work that they've been doing and continue to do. And it's a chance for you to get a kind of roadmap if there are people you want to touch back in with. So with no further ado, at this stage, I'll hand you over to Colin Burke from the School of Psychology. Colin worked with us here in Agile and the USM project for a period of time, and he's bringing some of the experiences and insights he had from that to your attention this morning. So Colin, over to you.
Thanks, Michael. Can I just confirm that you can see my presentation and not the notes of my presentation?
Perfect.
Great. Thanks everyone, and welcome. My name is Colin Burke. I'm the former PM, as Michael said, for the USM project, and Kieran Bryan, that's here as well, is the current project administrator for USM. My predecessor was Jeremy Britton, and Kieran's was Emer Kelly, and just prior to that was Amy MacDonald originally. So there's been a little staff throughput in the USM, but one consistency over the past 2 years has definitely been the remote working group. So what's the remote working group? What is it? So in March 2020, as we know, COVID struck, and we all went home for a week, possibly 2, but we didn't realize that we'd be there for almost 2 years. And it was at this time then that the remote working group was born as a result. So who's involved? Well, the remote working group is a collection of staff in operational roles across the university, who the USM project team at the time, Jeremy and Amy, they were facilitating the USM rollout. So they began to come together initially, and it was just for one meeting at first, just to check in with people to see how they were faring out during this time. And so it became clear that the real question for the remote working group was set up to answer was, how do I know what the best way to do this thing is now that I'm not in the office anymore? It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's exactly what it was. What is this thing? The thing that was, you know, as complex or as mundane as anything. How could we do it from home as well? So it evolved over the last 2 years to become more than this with its members. So the schools and colleges, like, it's a place for staff to come together and find solutions and just to check in with each other and have some human contact. In addition to these staff coming together, the staff that provide the frontline services and supports the students and staff and faculty, other internal services began to come along to the meetings as well, and the attendance grew. So we had curriculum and assessments from registry, and this followed on with IT services and estates and global and access lifelong learning. So these internal services could plug into the remote working group and into an information flow that might be relevant for them and to help with the work that they do. It also was being used as an additional forum for sharing information and say demonstrations of new systems and new software were demoed in the community. So even in my time, we had the new soft phone system demoed for the remote working group members, and indeed staff themselves who developed their own spreadsheets that help solve their problems or make their day work a little bit easier. They would demo them and share them, and other systems like Wufoo functionality that people shared to help manage their email. This was all done at the remote working group meetings. We also had workshops, so some subgroups from the remote working group were invited along to take part in workshops to help develop some internal services, like with IT, with the Do workshop, or with the ServiceNow invitation. So memberships of the group itself, like memberships has increased steadily since 2020, and it stands at over 250 members now. And each week there is an average 40 attending steady for the last 6 months. And we asked, like, why the increase? Well, in part, we think that it's the value that the members get from the meetings. It's an agreed safe space where internal safe space where questions can be asked freely, and more importantly, solutions can be found either at that moment from other staff members inside the group, or some internal services that might be expert in the area, they can help. Or indeed what USM do, we take away the query and try and find a source for the solution and bring it back and share it with the community at large. Another potential reason for the growth is the advanced agenda that's available to the community in Google Currents, meaning that a staff member can make a point of attending a meeting in the next day or so that's coming up if there's something relevant to them. And maybe more importantly is the notes afterwards, the detailed notes that are produced are dropped back into Google Currents and shared with all members. So if you're unable to attend a meeting, you can pick the notes up afterwards, and they're an excellent source of reference of what's gone on, or maybe what new systems are coming down the tracks. It gives staff a heads up, and this can all still be linked to the fantastic updates that we get at the meeting from internal services colleagues. They provide, such as, say, like our trimester, we have our peaks of things that just need to get done at a certain time. So we've had great support from, say, curriculum, with, say, during module descriptor closers or whatever, they would come along and give staff support with that. During COVID, estates gave amazing updates on, on the building, the health and safety of how to navigate the university, or what rooms were available. And of course, during exams, we had excellent updates from assessment on the hybrid exams, the in-person and the remote exams. And these were very, very welcome for staff members that had to work during this time and very uncertain times. So it's shown to give a voice, I think, to frontline support staff. It's a safe space where people can bring their queries. What do the members themselves say? Well, we've surveyed staff, we've surveyed the members of the group a couple of times, and we've asked questions such as, would you recommend remote working group to colleagues? And 100% of respondents said yes, they would. Or since joining the remote working group, do you think it has changed in any way? So these comments came in that from the members themselves, and membership has expanded. It has grown to encompass more areas and include more staff and operational roles over the last couple of years. It has become a hub for service providers to connect with those that use their services, and more open topics now for working than COVID only. Now it's looking at ways of innovation and influence change. And these are comments from the members themselves. And that's an interesting point to make there. So it did initially start with, with the COVID, how we can work with COVID in mind, but it has definitely moved in a different direction. Do you feel the remote working group is a supportive place to raise issues? And again, 100% of respondents said yes, it was. We asked this statement, the remote working group delivers on my expectations, and over 93% agree with this statement. And finally, what values do you get from the remote working group? So these are the comments that came in from the survey. It's extremely valuable environment to keep up to date in a rapidly changing environment, to learn and to share knowledge, shared sense of purpose of reducing duplication of effort, shared problem solving, and consistency of response to commonly faced challenges. That's excellent to see when you see that happening in real time during a meeting. And it's happened many times when someone someone asks a question or says something, and other members of the group can support and help them. Seeing colleagues from across the university has been a great way of feeling connected during lockdown. That's very important. It brings a bit of joy on a Thursday morning. I learn a lot about the wider community and gaining an understanding of what causes issues across the university. The remote working group has come to represent and capture the voice of a wide cohort of staff and operational roles. So what's the future? I think it's just going to keep going. I don't work with USM anymore, but I've been talking to them, and they plan to continue hosting the remote working group. It's a forum that gives voice to the frontline support staff in schools and colleges. It's a friendly, safe place to raise issues, and a platform for internal services support our staff with updates, system changes, and announcements. It's a flat place. It's informal but very professional, and I think it's a special place. We talked about changing the name, possible name change over the last few months, because we're in our hybrid trial now. So some suggestions came in, like hybrid working group or professional staff working group or operations working group. But the USM and the remote working group themselves, the members will come back to that, I imagine, when the hybrid trial has passed. I have as just a small video here. It'll just take a second. I'll let me just really quickly share my screen again. Okay, I have done something. Oh yeah, I'm back. I've got too many screens. Share the audio, share the sound. And can everyone see that okay? Okay, I'll just leave that up there. That's just the email address is usm@ucd.ie. If there's anyone, any members here that'd like to maybe come along or join the remote working group, just contact Kieran there at that email address, and he'll drop your membership into the hub as well. So so that's me done. Any questions are welcome.
We'll take, Colin, we'll take questions at the end, if you can stay with us for sure. That segment. And folks, be sure if you have any questions that you put them in the chat as well. And Colin, great to see that you've added illustrator and animator to your skill set as well. So well done.
No problem.
So on that point, so taking the handover from Colin then, which was looking at a whole group of people who come together on campus to look at how we make UCD a place to teach and research and work and support one another. Now we're going to talk to or hear from Paula McGarry from the China Joint Colleges office about how some of that can be made work when you're dealing with thousands of kilometers separation and different cultures and locations. So Paula, over to you and your perspective from the China Joint Colleges office.
Okay, good morning, everybody. By way of demonstrating the China Joint Colleges office use of decision time, I've set up today's meeting as a meeting pack. Now, you're looking currently at the decision time dashboard. It's the kind of the kickoff point for navigating between meetings, between the resource library, which can be policy documents, procedure documents. There's an action tab, which facilitates the assignment and tracking of actions arising during meetings. And then there's a very comprehensive research function, which proves very handy if you want to track and identify a particular document or a particular topic related to a particular committee. So I'm going to navigate now towards the meeting that I have set up for today. Where am I? Oh, yes, it's disappeared way down here. So here we are. This is now showing the agenda view. And this is a view that anyone attending one of our meetings will have access to. Down on the left-hand side, you see the structured agenda. Now, that is populated by a series of templates that we put in place for each of our committees for different colleges, for different forms of meetings. So the pre-populated template provides the structure, organizes the meeting into the sections, includes the standard recurring agenda items, but also placeholders for the meeting specific items that arise. So by clicking in on the left-hand panel, it brings to a more expansive view of specific agenda items. And it's typically within this space that attendees get access to meeting-specific or agenda-specific items. For example, a document that has been uploaded. There's also a function where attendees can put in notes to self, in other words, prompt, oh, I want to raise this item at the meeting, I want to flag this issue, or can share notes with colleagues or fellow committee members, looking for information or looking for clarification. It's also a space where the attendees, or the organizers, can assign tasks arising and related to specific items, and also record minute items. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit later on. Now, in the time that's available, it's not really going to be possible to show a full demonstration of the decision time. So I'm going to start by just giving a very brief overview of how we ended up using decision time and our, now, where's slideshow gone? It's disappeared from my view. Here we are. Excuse me for one moment. Slideshow from the beginning. Has that launched and showing a screen? Okay, so hopefully this won't take too long. But by way of background, first of all, for people who don't know about the China Joint Colleges Office, we provide administrative support to UCD's 3 international colleges in China. We have Beijing Dublin International College, Shanghai Dublin International College of Transportation, and Guangzhou Dublin International College of Life Sciences and Technology. The office came into being in October, the end of October in 2020. We were struggling to get our head around COVID still. And so we've had no face-to-face contact with our partner universities at 3 different locations in China. So this had put a greater emphasis on holding regular and structured meetings and ensuring that we had a capacity to document the outcomes of those meetings in an effective and efficient way. To put some numbers on it, typically in an average semester, we can have in excess of 20 formal meetings across the 3 joint colleges. You can see in the panel on the table on the right that we have rolled this software system out to our 3 partner universities, BJT in Beijing, Shanghai University, and the South China Agricultural University. We've also got buy-in from UCD schools who provide majors on our program. So we have a UCD program director for each of our majors, and they are active users of decision time as well. So again, this is the key issue for us at the very beginning, recognizing that we had a very large number of meetings and a relatively small admin team. We looked for a software system that would just basically help to reduce the time spent supporting meetings. And the activities that are listed here, I'm not going to even go through them, they are the core components of organizing and supporting any meeting. And so it was these key activities that we looked for a method of just streamlining and coming up with a more harmonized and coherent way of running our meetings. Now, I'm jumping into, I suppose, the early stages here. And one of the key benefits from my perspective is that from the very moment we started the trial, we were using this as a live system to manage our meetings. And that, I have to say, was very much due to the excellent training that was provided, but also there was no such thing as, well, this is a 1 month. We literally could have kept this on trial for as long as we wanted. In the very early stages, running this with our partner university in Beijing, we found it to be intuitive and people took to it quite easily. Definitely effective in streamlining the meeting process. A key part for us is that we were able to give full and secure access to our colleagues in Beijing, particularly in terms of sharing sensitive information. We felt this was a particularly secure way of giving them limited access to the information they needed. Our partners were particularly happy with the platform to such an extent that it evolved where they were willing to share responsibility for organizing and chairing some of our management meetings. It's kind of just a headline summary of some of the benefits. I know it's a big, broad statement that it transformed our approach to all components of meetings, but in many ways, we were able to leverage some of the, I suppose, some of the features of the system to structure our meetings and I'm going to say impose on attendees, yeah, this is what we're going to do, and it works. So, like, first of all, in terms of launching or issuing a meeting pack, the pre-populated agenda templates certainly underpins the speedy preparation and issue of meeting packs. We certainly found there was reduction in time for preparing and running meetings. I hope to get to show how briefing documents are immediately linked to the agenda item. So it simplifies the way in which committee members engage and participate in meetings. We have found that attendees are typically better prepared. We find that they're exchanging notes. They're coming back to us if they're looking for clarity on particular documents. And it just overall, it leads to a reduction typically in discussion time at meetings. More focus is given to decision making and to the assignment of follow-up tasks. Now, in terms of the overall and closing summary, and again, I hope to get back to demonstrate the system a little bit now if time permits, it does impose an intuitive, structured flow to our meetings, and it has, to my mind, seriously improved, or I should say reduced, the administrative burden of organizing and supporting meetings, recording and document key meeting outcomes, decisions and actions. Now, with a bit of luck, I will be able to get back to decision time itself. Here we are. Hopefully now we're back into the agenda view. And in the few minutes I have available, I would like to run a very short video, and it's giving the kind of the perspective of an organizer, administrators who are tasked with setting up a meeting. So this is about 2 minutes, just a little over 2 minutes. So if you bear with me, I hope that it launches from within.
Well, as we're watching it, is there a sound to go with it, or is it it's all in the pictures?
Oh, sorry. Can you not hear the sound? What
No.
do I need to do to broadcast the sound?
When you share your screen, you need to share sound as well.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you for that, Michael. I'm blindly here thinking that people are hearing the sound. Let's see now.
So you need to reshare it, but of course, the picture paints 1,000 words and all of those things. So at this stage, you've got about 15,000 words done, which is great.
So stop share.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael, for the tutorial in
And
So
then you share and with sound.
Share screen, share sound. Oh, thank you so much for that. Hopefully I get back to the right screen now. Share.
Click on New Meeting at the top right. In this screen, we're prompted to fill in the details of the meeting, such as meeting title, venue, start and finish time. We're then prompted to select which committee this meeting is being created for. Here we'll see a selection of the committees previously set up. The significance of this step is that the system will know which individuals are to be pre-selected for invitation and which template to display on the next screen. Finally, I determine which organisers I'd like to give editing control to. As meeting owner, I can either be the sole editor or invite others to be joint editors. The Edit Agenda screen is where we're going to build our meeting pack by ensuring the correct agenda is in place and reports are uploaded within their corresponding sections. If a template has been previously built for a specific committee, we'll be presented with a pre-populated meeting pack, which gives us an excellent starting point and saves us having to create a meeting pack from scratch. Whilst we've been given this head start, we may wish to make some changes for this particular meeting. We can easily do this by adding, removing and reordering agenda items. Let's take these one at a time. To add an agenda item, simply select the agenda item which precedes the one we wish to create. When we click on the Add Agenda button, it creates a new one underneath. Now it's just a simple case of adding in details such as level, title, number and type. The numbering level relates to how the agenda items will be numbered. The default is level 1 and will assign a full number such as 1, 2, 3 or 4. For sub-agenda items such as 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, we select level 2. To remove an agenda item, we simply select the appropriate item on the left-hand side and click on the bin icon on the right-hand side. If we wish to reorder the agenda items, we simply drag and drop to move it into the correct location. Once happy with the structure of the meeting pack, we can then click on the Auto Renumber button, which ensures the agenda items are assigned the appropriate number.
Okay, I'm going to cut that short because I was slow in getting it launched in a way that you could actually listen to. And very briefly, I just wanted to demonstrate a particular feature that we have found very good in terms of managing the actions that are assigned or the tasks that are assigned in the course of a meeting. I don't know if you can see at the bottom here, there is an add action icon here that you click on. We usually have one person, typically an academic lead, assigned responsibility for allocating tasks in the course of the meeting. So it's a very simple task in terms of, okay, I'll just pick one that would have been put in before. You can expand on the description of the task, you decide who it's allocated to, and you can set a deadline for the task to be completed. And then you just click to assign to ensure that an email is sent to the person telling them that a task has been assigned to them. So that creates an action. Now, in terms of the person who's been allocated that task, I want to very quickly just go to the decision time icon or dashboard. I go to actions. And in this instance, it's set to actions assigned to me. And so you can see that that now has appeared in my workflow as an action that is down to me. You can also navigate to look at actions that are being made visible to me. Now, so this would be from all of the committees that I'm involved in. This is from tasks and actions that have been created typically by academic leads. So I get a chance to look over, work that's in progress, tasks that's in progress, or tasks that are slipping behind and maybe need a gentle nudge so this is something that, as I say, in terms of, I'm going to navigate my way back to meetings now. I could have used a back button, but probably would have got lost. The way in which we manage this in terms of, say, individual meetings is that at the end of each meeting, we create an action list. And this action list is part of the meeting, the document outcomes. It goes side by side with the meeting agenda, or I beg your pardon, the meeting minutes, but it's very much focused on here for a particular agenda item. This task was assigned to Professor Howe. This was assigned to Associate Professor Lee. So in that way, we have a document that goes out at the end of the meeting, flagging people that they've been tasks have been assigned to them, and it's reviewed at the next meeting by way of kind of prompting that tasks are dealt with, and then people move on. I'm out of time, so I'm going to finish up there. I suppose I'm not here promoting a particular meeting software system. I suppose I'm just sharing the significant benefits that we have obtained from using this particular one. Okay, I'm going to bring it to a stop there. Thank you.
Paula, thanks very much for that, really interesting insight into how you've been running the meetings with your colleagues from across the globe. We'll come back to a chance to have some questions and follow-ups at the end, but with no further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our colleague Susan Gray from IT Services, and she's talking about the interesting topic of hybrid meetings. We've all done face-to-face and we've all done Zoom, and this is the question of how, as we move into the next 20 or 30 decades, how we'll be able to do, I say decades now, how we'll be able to do hybrid meetings as we all become, I presume Susan's not going to be talking about us all become avatars in a virtual space, so I shouldn't introduce Humor before she's had a chance to talk. And with absolutely no further ado, over to Susan. You're famously on mute, Susan.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just can't get my little keyboard is not doing what I expect it to do. So, okay, what can you all see? Can you see my, we can
see the presentation in your browser, yep. Okay,
so 1 second now, is that a little bit better?
Yep, that's shared now, thanks.
Right, okay, no problem, not at all. And you can all hear me, okay? More important. Okay, brilliant. Well, welcome to the presentation from EAG, and I speak on behalf, of course, as well of IT Services on how to make hybrid meetings work. And we thought we would share some of our own experiences on what's good and what's perhaps not so good, i.e. best practice that we have found so far in the new normal. As it is, we're all very used to online meetings. You may or may not be aware that there are 2,000 Zoom meetings held every day in UCD and something like 300 to 400 Google Meet meetings. So we're all very familiar with the online. However, with the return to campus, the hybrid meeting has become the new normal. And this is, as with everything else in post-COVID life, or almost post-COVID life, it's an evolving situation. So I thought I'd start in a true academic fashion with a definition, and the hybrid meeting, of course, we're all well aware, is one where people are meeting but not together. So we have some people in a room all together, and we have some people in a virtual or a remote situation. And so it's a very different experience depending on where you are. And what we thought that we would do, give you perhaps some insights into how we have met those challenges, how we have overcome them, and what we recommend that you do and don't in those situations. And the first one, of course, is hearing and seeing. So you need to make sure that everybody can hear and see to the same levels. That means that people are engaged, that they can collaborate, and that nobody feels excluded, so that you want your meetings, as I think our colleague Paula said, was to be as efficient and effective as possible. So the technology that we have found to overcome those, some of which we already had in place and some of which may be new to you, but I hope in every sense that it's informative and helpful. Okay. So the first thing that we have to go through is the room, the people in the room, and then the people on the Zoom. And that's, you know, the most important thing, I think, is that the people come first, as always with us in EAG. So we have our calendar there. Google Calendar is the one that we use, and that's what I'll show you in a second. We have, of course, Zoom. Again, we're all very familiar with it at this stage. But the fourth thing, I think, which is interesting, and you may not have heard of it as yet, It's called Zoom Rooms. It's relatively new. It's a piece of software that runs on a dedicated piece of hardware, which is a very nice way of saying it's a big fancy screen. The one that we use in the computer center is called D10. There are others available. Polytech, Logicon, if you have a large screen and you want to run this software, please feel free to get in touch. And Zoom Rooms is a really good collaborative tool which allows and supports very well, I think, the running and scheduling of hybrid meetings. Okay, I'll come back to that a little bit more later on. As every good event planner knows, you start with the before, you run the during and after, and they're the three pillars that you'll organize your event on, or at least that's what I do. So before the meeting starts, you need to, of course, set it up in your calendar and make sure that you've got everybody there that you need to have there. So this is just a little screenshot of what I would do in Google Calendar. You can see there the title, and I've got my Zoom meeting. I'm sure you can, I hope you can all see that clearly enough. The Zoom meeting is, of course, you do that to set up your Zoom meeting without having to sign into Zoom or anything. It's just very easy. The other one, I think, on the far right there, guests and then rooms. Now, obviously, we've all invited guests to our meeting, but rooms relates to Zoom rooms, and you can see that there are a number of them there across the university. I have added in the boardroom there in the computer center, our own lovely building here, and it is a room for 10, and it's got a Zoom room device that will that's appropriate for 10 people to be. It's large enough but not too large for the room. It doesn't dominate, and it's not so small that people can't see it, so it's an appropriate size, and that's what that looks like. And note the meeting title is a little bit generic, but it's specific enough so that people will know what's going on, and I'll explain more about that a little bit later as well. Okay, so this is what the screen on the Zoom Rooms actually looks like. So you can see it says whatever date and time it is, the current day, and the current day's meetings that are scheduled there. Now on the right, there are a series of other functions, and it's touch screen. It's also voice activated. So it's very 21st century, Michael, you were saying there. So yes, and that's my inner nerd coming out. It's absolutely very funky. And on the top right corner, I don't know if you can see that there. There's a little sharing key, which is 6 or is it 7 letters. Okay, that's very easy to remember and to follow. And again, I'll touch on that a little bit later on as well. So there you go. The reason I mentioned about the meeting title, there may be some GDPR considerations there, and it's just a brief thing. Somebody may pass and see the screen, they may put their head into the room, or they might see through a window, and they would then know that whoever is on the WST meeting planning committee will be in this room at this time. Or you might have something in there saying Susie Bray is talking about salary review to somebody else or something. So keep your, your meeting titles informative, but not too informative. Just a thought there. Okay, now the next thing about a room is a little bit more, not quite so 21st century perhaps, or technical. It's to do with the room layout. And what we have found in EAG is the U-shaped table layout is best. And that is to satisfy the sight and sound criteria. That means that everybody who is in the room can see each other equally and hear each other equally, as can the people on the Zoom screen. And that's really important for an equity of experience. Now, there are things that you can't control, like where the sun is in the sky or how the artificial light falls, but it is something that you do need to consider. So where you put, if you have a large screen, where you put it on the wall, so that people are almost at eye level. And as well as that, the camera location. Now, the camera, in the case of the D10, the product that we use, it's actually at the top of the screen. So our screens kind of look a little bit low maybe. And that's because then it gives everybody sort of an equal eye level. So you can really engage with people, whether you're in the room or on the Zoom. Again, it's something that you'll be advised on if you do decide to go with this product or Zoom Rooms generally. Okay, now again, this is, and this is, okay, I'm going with my whole nerd thing here again. This is one of my favorite features of Zoom Rooms. It's called Smart Gallery. It's a recent release from Zoom. And what it means is that it's, oh, I'll show you in a second. I have another picture, Michael, that shows 1,000 words, so much better than I could say. But what it means is that you have a close-up of everybody who's sitting around the table, as well as a comprehensive panoramic view of everybody in the room. And that gives everybody on the Zoom a really clear insight into people's expressions, people being engaged, people being present. And I really like it. I think it's a very, I find it very 21st century actually. And this is what it looks like. So these are all my lovely colleagues in EAG. We were having a meeting there last Friday morning. And so you can see on the bottom right, there were 2 people there. You can see the next graphic image along has 3 people. And then you can see all 5 of us that were at the table there. And that was just a small, it was just our Friday breakfast. It was just a small meeting. So we didn't do the whole U-shape thing, but that's just to show you how it looks. And all of my other, you can see those happy faces there. They're lovely. So that's all my colleagues in EAG. Okay, so that's what, that's the smart gallery. Okay. Now we'll move on to during the meeting. And again, we're back to sight and sound. And in this instance, inside the room and out, you need to consider sound. And for me, this is a real feature of coming back to work after being at home or remotely for so long. The idea of that there are other people around who are close to you and that you can actually hear them as well as see them is relevant. And I think a lot of people are perhaps not used to having other people around, and you know, the noise that it'll bring, the general kind of chit chat. And that's fine in a room if you're having a meeting. However, if you're asking people to perhaps share documents from their laptops or to join the meeting, even if they're in the room, to join it through Zoom on a laptop or a mobile, you must, honestly, it's essential that you get them, everybody, to mute the microphones and the speakers on their laptop, because the feedback it's very significant and it's really uncomfortable and it takes a while to fade. And that's from the harsh voice of experience there. And the other feature outside the room, again, this is a returning to work a feature. The noise can be quite loud, and I think perhaps we've all forgotten what it is to hear other people's voices, the human sound, I don't know, but it is something. And you can control the volume very nicely on a Zoom Rooms device. And again, I'll show you how to do that. Now, this is another new feature of Zoom, and again, inner nerd, this is one of my very favorite things actually. Now let me put some clear blue water between Zoom, the app where you join a meeting, and this is the Zoom controller app whereby you can control a meeting. Now when I say control, the reason that this is handy is if you have maybe a speaker or a chair, or you know, somebody who doesn't have the capacity for whatever reason to hop up and down and touch the screen and go volume or share documents, whatever, the Zoom controller app will give you the access to do this from your mobile phone. So you can then facilitate that meeting for somebody very easily, very quickly. I think that's a really nice, I really like it. It's very handy. And the way that you do it is you use, you might remember at the beginning, I noted there's a sharing code on the top right, that's 6 or 8 characters, alpha characters or letters. So that's how you do it. And when you're in there, this is what the screen looks like. So it's very familiar. We have camera control. We can do our smart gallery or not. We can do all the settings. We can do the sound. You see there in the bottom right, we have our lovely volume progress. We can stop the video. We can share the content, change our view. Everything is feasible to you all from the comfort of your chair with your mobile phone. I think that's a really handy one. And I find it excellent that whoever is chairing or speaking can just, you know, not be interrupted in their flow. And you know, it really reflects reality there. I find it very good. Okay, now sharing documents again isn't new to any of us at this stage. And just to point out that you can do it in a Zoom through a chat or an email. You're all familiar with how to send it. And the whiteboards currently are, yeah, maybe perhaps not quite as sophisticated, or we could go with a bit pagan if we wanted in email, in Zoom. However, the reason I mention these is because Zoom is a very fast evolving product, very customer responsive. And in, I think it's Q2, which will be quite soon, they're going to do a new release with very fancy new whiteboards that will allow you to do colored post-its and different size font and images and all the rest of it. At the moment, it just does, you know, workflow and shapes and different colored font and icons and stuff. The nicest feature though is that you can email things from whiteboards. So if you're sharing documents, you'll have to oh, sorry, excuse me. You can email them from the thing. Don't forget that, because otherwise you'll just lose them. But again, I'm sure you're all very familiar with this, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. So When you're presenting in the room, I would suggest that you sit near the camera if you can, so that you can be seen clearly and of course heard, and eye contact. Look directly at the camera. I hope you can all see me doing this now, practicing what I preach, so that you can scan the room as well as scanning the Zoom. And the other thing is, don't turn your back on the screen. Now, I admit nothing, but I'm just saying it's a very easy thing to do. Okay, so we'll leave that one right there. Okay, right, so that's it. That's our experience on that one. Now, what doesn't work, I think, which is probably as helpful as all the stuff I've been talking about until now, and they're the Zoom features that we all know and hopefully enjoy, breakout rooms, polls and surveys, emojis, and oh gosh, sorry guys, didn't realize this phone on. Now you can use these features, but you do have to get everybody to log into the meeting on their Zoom, through their Zoom, maybe on the laptop or the mobile or whichever, to use these features. I'm not sure that they really do work in a hybrid situation though. However, this is an evolving, moving feast. So if anybody had feedback about something like that, you might want to let me know, because I'm always delighted to collaborate and hear from my lovely colleagues across UCD. Okay, now I'm coming to the end of this little speech here, or presentation. And I think in the interests of, you know, ever and always getting better, you can request feedback at the end of your meetings, and it's not mandatory, obviously. There is a feature that you can set this for yourself in Zoom, and that's the screenshot of it there. It's in your meeting basic, and you just say display end of meeting experience feedback survey. And it might be worthwhile for the first 8 or 10 or 20, whatever it is, hybrid meetings that you run. It might be interesting to get feedback on how people thought that they went. Like in common with my colleagues, Colin and Paula, the feedback that you get from the ground from people who are actually doing it is really valuable and very positive. And I always like that I get that feedback from colleagues. It helps inform the next steps that I take. So what you get when you say request the feedback is you get a little thumbs up or you get a little thumbs down, and if somebody gives you a thumbs down, there's a little feature that you can add in a few more details there if you like, and again that'll help inform perhaps how you move forward in your hybrid situation for meetings and perhaps other things. So that was just a few things that I thought would be helpful to people that we had from our own experiences here in EAG. Yeah, this is one that really will contribute to equity of experience for everybody, and it's ending the meeting for everyone. Now, as host, you know, it's an easy thing to say leave meeting or leave meeting for all, but if you're in a hybrid situation, I would leave it until all the people have left the room. And then anybody who's on the Zoom gets a chance to hear that little casual chit chat, you know, the water cooler, you know, what we've all really missed over the last 2 years. That's what you can get if you leave those meetings open until the room is empty and everybody's left the Zoom. And I know you're kind of thinking, well, that's a bit inefficient, Susan. You know, we need to kind of get things done, get things sorted. We're all busy. But I just think it's a small feature whereby people can, you know, just make sure they're not missing out. And people who are remote don't feel isolated or excluded or in any way, or that people in the room feel that they have to be there to hear or see everything. No, it's just a small thing. Again, it's your own choice. Okay, there's a couple of links there that may be of some help to you. Our digital office, which I think is a really fabulous resource. I hope you've all visited, and if not, we invite you now kindly to come along. And the second one is our lovely IT support hub. There is a knowledge base article ready and waiting, lovingly done by my own fair hands, for Zoom rooms, devices, and so on. So, and I will, of course, be adding to that as we're going along, as time evolves and I learn more and hopefully share more, and the questions that come in will inform the various details that I add to it. And I think the questions are coming at the end. Michael, I hope I haven't gone over time there now or anything. wrapping up.
I wouldn't dare to comment on timekeeping. But so Susan, thank you very much for that. There are plenty of questions we'd all like to ask, but we'll take them at the end. And your inner nerd is not so inner. Just to let you know, it manifests itself in great enthusiasm and interesting stuff. So we've had a first segment which was about how do we work together as colleagues in our new complex world. The second one was looking at the kind of technologies that can help us run meetings. We've just had Susan talking about the kind of physical environment and virtual environment we can create. And the last session is the most tangible for all of us in some ways. It's me, my work, and my building. So in the end, we tend to exist in buildings. And so I'll hand over to our colleagues, Chantelle and Helen from HR, and Maureen from the President's Office, who can talk to us about them, their work and their building, or variations on those themes. So with no further ado, over to Maureen, Chantelle and Helen.
So, thank you very much, Michael. Yes, at last I'm not on mute, even though you might want to put me on mute after this session, but hopefully not. So we've only got 15 minutes and Michael is a stickler for time, so no pressure. But and I do tend to speak very quickly, so hopefully I don't speak too quickly here, that people will get the message and get the story we're trying to tell this morning. So I'm very excited to be here, and on a Monday morning, excitement isn't the usual for me, but it's great to see so many colleagues, albeit virtually. And so we're here to talk for 15 minutes with Helen here from HR and colleague Maureen from the President's Office. We're here to talk about the concept of activity-based working, and also has huge resonance right now with hybrid working. And just to note as well, I'll be heading up the UCD cross-university group in relation to the hybrid trial that I think everybody will be familiar with and really interested in. It really is a paradigm shift, I suppose, what we're all experiencing right now. I just thinking of Barbara earlier when she talked about the consistency of experience in the workplace prior to the pandemic, then post-pandemic, whether you're face-to-face, whether you're remote. But what activity-based working is about actually is consistency in our diversity. And I think that's the best way to put it. And I think also I'm very much people-centric myself and colleague-centric. So I think we have a really great opportunity to create a workplace for ourselves now with that lovely blend, that work-life balance of home and in the office. And we really want to protect the vibrancy of our students, experience in UCD, and we really have an opportunity to work together now for the rest of this year in terms of what that can look like for us and what that can feel like for us. And in terms of activity-based working, this was a new concept for ourselves here, Maureen and Helen as well. So we really had a baptism of fire working with the consultants from Feldheim, who are experts in the field of activity-based working, and equally the preconception that I had about what it is, and equally when I talk to colleagues as well in terms of activity-based working. I hope we can dispel a few of those myths here today. It's not hot desking. It's actually the opposite. What it is about the person, it's about autonomy, it's about trust, and it's about a diversity of experience. And equally, hopefully that will enhance the working lives of all of us if we get to it in time in terms of iterations. So I'm just going to share a short slide deck with you. I'm only going to speak for another couple of minutes just about the concept itself and the strategic, I suppose, vision of UCD to try it out for ourselves, and the connection with hybrid and the COVID pandemic experience that all of us continue to experience. We're not out of the woods yet, but hopefully soon. So I'm just going to share my screen, if you can bear with me for a second. Can everybody see that? Yeah, a few heads. Oh. Okay, so me, my work and my building, as Michael said. So building, what building are we in? That could be a mystery these days. But in terms of activity-based working, it's about the potential of a building to enhance our work-life experience. So as I said, I'm just going to talk briefly about the concept and UCD context, and Helen's going to take us through the practicalities of the project, which we're still actually in the pilot right now. We probably won't conclude till May or June. Maureen is going to share with us her personal experience as a resident of Ardmore and what it means at that level. So without further ado, what is activity-based working? Well, it's a way of working in which colleagues make shared use of a diversity of work settings that have been designed to support different kinds of activities. So this is all about the tasks we do and how we plan our working week. So if we're going to be mixing working from home with working in the office, what sort of an office space would really be inspirational for us to enter, for us to be able to plan our day and to be able to use different spaces to best effect? It's about empowering people with trust. So it's about each individual planning their own week, you know, with their managers and team, colleagues, etc. as well, in terms of what that could look like. So what you might want to do working from home and what tasks you might actually want to do in the office, and what comes to mind here really is that collaboration piece. It's working with your colleagues. It's the serendipity. This is the beauty of activity-based working in terms of the space that you might occupy. Now, there's 3 pillars to this concept, and it's about the culture, it's about the technology, behaviors, and it's also about obviously the space. So it's about working on those 3 dimensions, but in a congruent way. So obviously we need to have the space that's attractive to be in and useful to be in. We also have the technology to support it, but equally what we do with the space. So for instance, we have so many different spaces in Ardmore House where we have our pilot, and one of them is the Create Room. Okay, now we can play around with the names of all of these things as we move on, but this is a space where it could be a hub for innovation, creativity, and empowering people to work together in a dynamic way. And then you might think, what sort of room would be nice to sit in for that experience? Like, i.e. windows, light, the furnishing, being able to play with the furniture, being able to have digital technology, whiteboards, all of that good stuff. So it's about being able to use your imagination, I suppose, to reimagine how you might like to work in the future, and being able to support that to the best effect, and equally co-create. This is all about people working together. So we've 45 Ardmore residents, and we've had multiple workshops with a steering group, as you would. We have a reference group, which is representative of teams within Ardmore, and then you have the individual perspective as a resident. And I like that name, actually, resident. It's just, and it feels like, because that building is so beautiful, it mightn't be the greenfield site you'd pick to start with in terms of activity-based working, but we had the opportunity because we were moving anyway and post-COVID and coming back to campus. So we said, why not give it a go? Why not try it out? So for each activity, so it's all about the job you want to do. So whether you want to be on your own, focused with quiet space, that's facilitated. If you want to work with a colleague in collaboration with screens, etc., as well, in a nice cozy twosome, that's facilitated. If you want to have formal meetings, that is facilitated in terms of being bookable. And then you have these lovely social settings as well, like that coffee house experience. If anyone, if you're in the States, you go into Starbucks and everybody's out with their Apple, usually laptops, etc., as well, working away and doing what you want. And you like that buzz behind you and you might listen to music. That's facilitated. It's that type of a buzz and energy that we're going for here. So you can see here, variety, diversity is key. And it's, I suppose, all of us growing a level of comfort with that, in terms of, today I could be in X, Y, Z, different rooms or different spaces, but that's up to you. It's self-directed. And we had a question as well, because the president made a decision, like there's different nuances to activity-based working, and you can obviously make it fit for purpose for you. So the president decided he wanted to mix in with everybody else and not have his own office as well. So that's a feature that you can accommodate in activity-based working. So equally, you could be in that coffee house atmosphere with the president beside you, and that's all good. Equally, like with your manager, if you're thinking, if I'm sitting there having a coffee, for 3 hours in the coffee dock experience, will I be perceived to be working? That concept is blown out of the water. It's about trust. It's about getting your job done in the environment that you can thrive in. That's what it's about. And equally, we're working our way through the pilot at the moment. We've had obviously complications with COVID. Of course, we could be in, then we had to be out again. Not really experienced the building. We have lead-in times. We know we have a global issue with hiring kit and all that good stuff. But we're getting there. We are getting there, and people are beginning now. Hopefully, we can actually experience the building in a more meaningful way now as our kit arrives as well. And we also had a great workshop there last week as well about how we might, design the Create Room. Now, myself and Helen, we're sort of laughing at good at this, HR people, and we're in all this design, architect, floor plans. Don't ask me a question on the floor plans, please, in Q&A. I can barely find my way, to the bathroom in my own house. So that's quite a challenge for me. But you get the general idea, and Helen will bring you through that. So why in UCD? So we two things. One, obviously COVID, and thinking about coming back to the workplace and how we could reimagine, and I love that word, how we might work. We've all changed. We've looked at our flexibility and how we can embrace change and live with change in terms of the massively fabulous response of the UCD community to the pandemic and how we worked effectively during that time. And we know the hybrid trial is going to be ongoing now to the end of the summer until the end of the year, actually. And as I was saying, I've been leading up on that project with all of the UCD community, and it's something really close to my heart. I've always believed in work-life balance. I've always believed in trust. I've always believed in trying to make a place as creative and as attractive as possible for people to work in. Now we have the opportunity. Now we have the opportunity to work together to try and make that happen. And it's something I'm really passionate about. And this is why the concept of activity-based working as well is something that we really should think about and iterate and share with each other as we move through the coming months ahead. It is about pioneering. It's a new paradigm, a way of working. It is about the future. And if we think about our students and our workplace as well, and my stepson, I'll share that with you, Mark, he actually studied in UCD and works in UCD as well, but he was looking at my stuff here in terms of activity-based working, and he was so interested in it, like, you know, and he was talking with a few of his friends and saying, wow, if you looked at, say, the traditional way of working, you know, we come in, you have, say, a designated desk or a space. Now, there's challenges, of course, everybody likes their own space. However, this can be built into it. And but also he said this looks like a really attractive way to work. So if you look at the UCD Village, for instance, and I hope some people have had a chance to potter around, it's a lovely space, and it's that type of an idea, it's that type of an energy that we would be seeking to create. And equally, like our strategic goals in UCD, as we know, it was like Andrew must be Mystic Meg, I think, way back in the day, when you think about what happened with COVID and everything, with health, empowering humanity, digital transformation, our footprint, sustainability, hugely important things. So as we work through hybrid, and if we have the footfall on campus and we can see maybe, you know, 40% underuse of buildings or whatever, of course it is our moral obligation to try and see how we can use that space to the best effect. And so that's the opportunity for all of us, and to be able to see and be creative about how we might use space. So again, our core values, I have them over here in the university: excellence, creativity, integrity, collegiality, engagement, diversity. Hugely important. And that's built into the concept of activity-based working as well, because again, it's all about trust and being able to determine your own working day and how you approach your working day and how you get your work done. So for me, that is hugely attractive and actually very inspirational. So back to why Ardmore House. Well, again, I already said we had the opportunity between COVID and we were moving anyway. So again, let's give it a go. It was that sort of an attitude which has prevailed throughout the project. And it's been a pleasure, actually, myself and Helen working with different teams in UCD that we ordinarily might not be working with in this way. And it is I know the word journey, it sounds a bit cliched, but it is that. And we're learning as we go and adjusting as we go. So reassessing the workplace. So this is a workplace. This is what activity-based working is about. It's about variety. It's about acknowledging the variety in what we do and how we do it. It's about human security and well-being, how we can build an ambience into a building and an atmosphere that is somewhere that you would like to be and like being in. It's about purpose. So all of the spaces in the building are kitted out to support the typical tasks in your working week. Serendipity, which I love, and Dominic Martella won't mind me sharing this with you. He loves this aspect of it. It's not just with your own teams and thinking about Barbara was saying about silos. It's the opposite of that. It's about you could be sitting alongside colleagues from different areas. And equally, as we know, the water cooler, as our previous presenter was talking about as well, it's about that too, you know, that you can meet people and get so much done, as we know ourselves, face to face when we're actually on campus. And again, it's the shift is from how we can work better as teams and as an individual and bring that into it. So in summary, why explore this concept? Well, the office, as we know, it has changed. I think we could all agree with that. And equally, it's within our gift to try and determine what that workplace could look like in the future. We do have the opportunity to reimagine and use our creativity and our innate way of trying new things. And that's consistent, obviously, with the mission of a university too, that we're open to these things and trying to see what could it look like? What could it mean? It's about supporting the agility of the workforce in UCD as we move around campus and optimizing the employee experience and equally protecting the vibrancy of the campus experience. With a beautiful campus, and it's beautiful when you see loads of people out and about and our students and staff mixing. Again, the UCD Village is a lovely example of that. It's about our future talent pipeline. We have, you know, all of it. We talk about millennials. I'm not sure what the new word is now, but it's about thinking ahead strategically and what might attract talent in the future, because my goodness, I know the war for talent is a bit of a cliche, but it is, and how we can make our offering in UCD more attractive to people. And then equally, I think the last bit here, I can't see it with my screen at the moment, but it is all that strategic connection. It's about that strategic connection as well to our goals and how we might live and experience work in the future. So that's me. I'm sorry, Michael, I probably have gone over. Helen, I'm very sorry. I'll stop sharing here now and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chantelle, and good morning to everybody. I will certainly try to make up some time there. Can everybody see the presentations on screen? Okay, so activity-based working in practice. So as Chantelle said, we came together as a project team really to help support all of the residents in Ardmore House to define how they would work in an activity-based work setting. So we were looking at rules of engagement, sort of ways of working, how you'd organize, plan your day, and how to use the different spaces as they're intended. So how did we do this? Well, we started off with, as Chantelle said, with our floor plans. Really, we had our context and we had a layout. So we knew, broadly speaking, how we could use the space. And then it was about working with all of the residents through a number of facilitated workshops to understand their needs, bringing that forward into what's called I can't statements for each of the space. So understanding what can I do in this particular space, what can't I do? And then layering on behaviors to those I can't statements, so that it would be very easy and accessible for an individual to walk into a space and know, okay, what can I do here? What can't I do? What are the expected behaviors? And throughout all of our facilitated workshops, we were really thinking about how does this workspace service people? What do we need? What can we get the most from this space? And in doing that, we really took a deeper dive and looked at the technology, the physical context, the behavioral context. And we really explored, okay, what's given, what do we know in terms of the technology and the physical space that we have, and the expected behaviors, and then what do we need to explore, what do we need to develop further as a working group to make this space really work for us. So we took a co-create approach when it came to defining the rules of engagement. We did talk about the word rules, sounds quite strong, but really it's defining ways of working, how you use the space, what's expected, not intended to be policed. Equally, this is all about accountability, responsibility, just being clear when somebody asks, you know, if I'm in this space, I know what to do in this particular space. So sample statement here, as you can see, very clear. Things like use one space at a time, don't camp out in a particular space for a full day, you know, follow your activities and use the space as it's intended. With choice comes responsibility. This is the idea. So this is a nice floor plan here, one of the floor plans actually of Ardmore House. So you'll be able to see, you can kind of see the rooms are color coded here, and you'll see there's space for informal dialogue, you've got space for focused work, you've got space for video calls, and again, working with all of the residents to define the space for them, to design the rules of engagement. So for example, you've got an informal dialogue. So chatting is really welcome here. Socializing is welcome. Eating is fine. You'll see a very different set of rules of engagement for a focused space. No eating, no interrupting, no calls. This is the quiet space. So you get the gist of it. This was a really nice exercise to do with the group, because you really start to understand the building, understand the space, and really get to see the diversity of the space and the options available to you, which is quite exciting. So again, when we think about activity-based working, it's really very similar to the home. Things are organized around activities, and this is kind of the guiding principle behind it. And again, with a well-designed workspace, you know, it should facilitate a diverse range of activities and alternative ways to work. So you can see the range of activities, and the building is then set up to facilitate. Again, Chantelle did allude to this earlier. So I know when people kind of think about an alternative way of working, the hot desking is familiar to people, but activity-based working is more than hot desking. It's about having a diverse set of workspaces where you can do a variety of different types of work, where you can have different settings that facilitate quiet work, facilitate collaborative work. And just before I hand over to Maureen, I'm going to fly through a number of slides just to give you kind of a flavor or sense of what an activity-based working buildings could look like. So you've got, you know, different setups and design for taking calls, you moving through where you can have some informal dialogue, moving through into creative spaces where you can collaborate, and of course, room to socialize. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Maureen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. 1 second now. We have thrown a huge amount of information and technical terms at you over the last few minutes. Therefore, I'm going to keep it very simple. So what does activity-based working look like in practice? So for me, I go in the morning, I go down to the garden level and set up shop in a corner, work away for a while, pop out and grab a coffee. And then Gail, who's on reception, is part of my team. So once she's in, I'll touch base with her, pop up, say hello, and we'll catch up on a few different things that we need to catch up on. She'll open the post. And this is one of the things that I love about this whole idea. We open post, we date it, we scan it, and then we shred it. Very satisfying. I usually go to the same spot or in or around the same spot, mainly to maintain a pattern so that people know where they can find me. And that is something that we're encouraging people to do. We use a Google Calendar for booking rooms. There are 4 rooms that you can book on the ground floor, like 3 on the ground floor, 1 at garden level. And what we've encouraged people to do is, if they're going to be in a particular space for the day, they might want to put a note on the top of the calendar so that their colleagues can find them. So we usually have a team meeting 3 times a week, and Gail will pop down and join me, and the other team members will join on Zoom, and we do our business. And then again, I'll usually grab lunch and eat it at the desk. It is acceptable in that particular space. But it's easier for me to kind of sit down, work through, and then bail out of campus at the earliest opportunity. But what I love is there is the scope to use so many different spaces in the building. The individual non-focus, which is on the top floor, is a smashing space because it has a great mix from different teams. But if you take a walk through the building at any particular time of day, it's fantastic to find people in all sorts of different spaces working away. Some of them on Zoom, some of them not. In fact, the space that was originally earmarked to be the president's own office and is now an informal dialogue space, people get a great kick about going in there and sitting down and doing their work. Now, what are the challenges and advantages to working in this particular pilot project? It is fair to say one size does not fit all, but it's a pilot. And what's great about it is we're taking the opportunity to see how we can make it fit for as many people as possible. Yes, it's a pain packing up every time you need to go to a meeting. One of the rules of engagement that we have is that you can, vacate a space for say 15 to 30 minutes before you should really release it. So if you're going off to a meeting somewhere else, the idea is you pack up and stash your stuff away. And that is a bit of a pain if you're going to be coming back later on. But we have on order a variety of storage lockers for the different floors. And that just is going to make it an awful lot easier because you just pop it in and go. As I said, finding people can be a bit of a challenge. It's almost like a treasure hunt, trying to see where people might be. But as I said, we've put that forward as a suggestion for people to pop it in the calendar. Information sharing. So we have a shared Google Drive, which all of the residents have access to. On there, we have the rules of engagement. We have information about all the different tech, so that people, we have drivers for the printers, we have drivers for the photocopiers. The other thing that you may find interesting is we have a particular space called the processing room, and that is where the printers and the photocopiers live. So, I mean, in fairness, over the last 2 years, most of us haven't really had a huge requirement to print. Therefore, keeping them all in one space is quite, I suppose, and it's one way of working things, But all that information is there on Google Drive, and I then send a weekly update by email on a Friday to let people know what's happening. So, we might have the estates team in tinkering with the heating, which I'm hoping is working at this date. We have the guys from ISS installing various different pieces of tech. And it's really useful to be able to share that with people so that they know what to expect when they're in. Yes, we have had some teething problems. I've already mentioned the heating. We won't say a huge amount more about that. But again, we're working through it, and people being on a pilot understand and are engaging with us on this. There are also significant lead-in times for ordering tech. So there are certain things that we're waiting on. We have a particular piece of kit that we call the Zoom hoodie, which is based in the video call room. And the idea is that you can sit in there and have your Zoom, and it's less disturbing for other people potentially in the room, and it feels a little bit more private for you. The advantages of this particular pilot are Many of them already have been mentioned by Chantelle and Helen. So there's tremendous flexibility. You're not required to stay in one particular spot all the time. There's tremendous potential within it. It supports creativity and adaptability. It's fantastic to be able to sit down and have people from 2 or 3 other different units in the same space. You never know what is going to come out of that conversation. There are tremendous opportunities to take a wander through the building, see who's there, and say, actually, I meant to ask you about something. You know, so much easier than trying to email or phone people. And the other thing I will say is I do get my steps in. So that is us for today. And I'll stop sharing and hand you back. Thank you very much for your time.
Great.